Hello, you're watching Shalom World News. I'm Dana Villa from Chicago, USA. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. After the Sunday Angelus, Pope Francis pleaded for further prayers for beleaguered Ukraine, where the war is destroying everything, even food grain. He also highlighted his concern about the collapse of the Black Sea Initiative, which had allowed wheat to be exported from ports in the area because of an arrangement between Russia and Ukraine mediated by Turkey and the United Nations. The Holy Father said grain is God's gift to feed humanity, and the war-related destruction that it faces is a serious grievance against God. The Pope also renewed prayers for victims of the Beirut port explosion during the Angelus. This week marked 3 years since the devastating explosion ripped through the Lebanese capital of Beirut, killing 218 people. Nearly 3,000 tons of ammonium nitrate caught fire and tore through Beirut port on August 4, 2020. The explosion caused up to $15 billion in damage, 5,000 injuries, and left 300,000 homeless. With just a few hours left for the World Youth Day in Lisbon, the Holy Father has entrusted all the young people in taking part in the mega gathering of the youth to the Blessed Virgin Mary. During his customary Sunday Angelus on July 30, Pope Francis asked all the believers to accompany him with prayers during his 42nd international visit to Portugal on Wednesday, August 1. He also encouraged the youth not to become spiritual retirees and to avoid mediocrity and routing in their spiritual life. The Holy Father said that many young people from all continents will experience the joy of meeting with God and with their brothers, guided by the Blessed Mother. During his visit to the Marian Sanctuary of Fatima, the Pope is slated to tour the premises of the shrine in the Pope Mobile before making his way to the Chapel of Apparitions. He will pray the Rosary there and address the pilgrims. The official Christmas holiday in Ukraine has been moved to December 25 from January 7 by the government. This comes as there are efforts at the civil and ecclesiastical levels to do away with customs originating from the Russian Orthodox Church, which still observes Christmas in January as per the Julian calendar. The Ukrainian parliament approved the bill earlier this month, and President Volodymyr Zelensky gave his approval on Friday, July 28. Sponsors of the bill claimed that Ukraine would be able to allow its citizens to live their own lives with their own traditions and holidays. Ukraine and Russia have most of the Orthodox population, but following Russia's illegitimate annexation of Crimea and its assistance for the separatists in eastern Ukraine's Donbas region in 2014, a sizable portion of the Orthodox population in the country has moved away from the Moscow Patriarchate. In February, the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church also announced that it was going to celebrate Christmas on December 25. The Holy See and Vietnam have come to an understanding of having a resident papal representative in the Asian nation. Secretary of State Cardinal Parolin reviewed the various passages that led to the agreement in a conversation with Vatican media. He defined the resident pontifical representative specifically as a, quote, bridge, end quote, whose responsibility is to further improve relations between the Holy See and the communist country. He said the envoy has the task of strengthening friendly relations and participating in the meetings of diplomatic corps in the spirit of mutual trust. Cardinal Parolin also lauded the Vietnamese for their industriousness. Addressing hundreds of lay Catholics, priests, and bishops, former Vice President Mike Pence exhorted them to help build a movement to reclaim faith and traditional values in the United States. He spoke at the recent annual summer conference hosted by the Napa Institute in California. The Republican leader said that the attendees must keep building on the historic pro-life victories made possible by former President Donald Trump. While addressing the gathering, he said, quote, "When I look at the influential men and women in this room, I have to tell you, don't underestimate the importance of your voice on behalf of your faith and your values," end quote. Pence also elaborated on a post-Roe society and vowed to consider only pro-life supporters for cabinet positions if elected president. Pence also criticized schools for teaching Caucasian students to be ashamed of their skin color and condemned the gender ideology that blurs the difference between men and women. The Justice and Peace Commission of the Assembly of Catholic Ordinaries of the Holy Land is urging an end to the attacks against Christian clergy, churches, and holy places in Jerusalem and Haifa. In a statement, Catholic bishops have said that Jewish hardliners are responsible for physical violence, acts of vandalism, and graffiti on the walls. The authors of the statement lamented that law enforcement officials hardly ever apprehend the perpetrators of these attacks and even less frequently hold them accountable. They are saying that while the slate of Israel repeatedly mentions that it guarantees all its citizens the freedom to practice religion, it is incomprehensible that such displays of contempt are allowed to continue. In recent months, the attacks against clergy and churches in the Holy Land is witnessing an uptick, and ultra-Orthodox Jews are to be blamed in most cases. Meanwhile, Justice Samuel Alito of the United States Supreme Court has said that Congress has no authority to regulate the top court of the country. He is the first justice to publicly oppose the attempts of Democratic lawmakers to impose a code of ethics on the court. Justice Alito voiced his opposition to this attempt in an interview given to the Wall Street Journal, which was published on Friday, July 28. This comes after Democrats pushed the ethics bill through a Senate committee. In the interview, Justice Alito said that no provision in the Constitution gave anyone the authority to regulate the Supreme Court. Recently, independent investigative news outlet ProPublica reported that Alito had taken a vacation in Alaska with a Republican donor who had business interests. Justice Alito dismissed the idea that he should have disclosed the trip or stepped away from cases related to donor Paul Singer. An exiled Nicaraguan lawyer and rights researcher has estimated that the Daniel Ortega regime has expelled 65 nuns over the past 2 years. This was revealed in a tweet by Martha Patricia Molina, who recounted how 10 religious congregations were affected in the country. Among the religious orders are the Missionaries of Charity, Trappist nuns, Religious of the Cross of the Sacred Heart, Poor Sisters of Jesus Christ, and the Dominicans of the Annunciata. Molina said that most of the expelled nuns were subjected to psychological trauma. The lawyer also cites how the Missionaries of Charity nuns, founded by Mother Teresa, were escorted by police to the border and forced to cross over into Costa Rica on foot. Molina has been chronicling Ortega's Nicaragua regime persecution of the Catholic Church. At least 43 people were killed and 200 injured in a blast at a political rally in northwest Pakistan on Sunday, July 30. The explosion took place during the rally organized by the Islamist Jamaat Ulema-e-Islam Fazal Party in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. The explosion claimed the life of one of its local leaders, Maulana Zialua. Officials believe that ISIS-affiliated Islamic State Khorasan could be behind the bomb attacks, as the group had previously targeted Jamaat Ulema-e-Islam Fazal due to its relationship with the Taliban in Afghanistan. The producer of the hit anti-trafficking movie Sound of Freedom has signed a pact with the government of El Salvador to jointly work against child sex abuse. Producer Eduardo Verastegui hosted a screening of the movie starring Jim Caviezel of The Passion of the Christ fame on July 29 for President Nayib Bukele and his deputies from the Legislative Assembly. The movie, which exposes the evil of child trafficking, was shown free of charge for more than 1,500 people under the auspices of the Ministry of Culture. The Mexican producer said that the movie was being shown outside the United States for the first time, and a president was inviting his cabinet and people to watch it. Before the screening, he signed an agreement to establish cooperation mechanisms to identify and prevent the exploitation of children. President Bukele stated that his government would work on combating child trafficking and to bring this very important message to all. The city of Rome unveiled a significant infrastructure project on Friday, July 28, that comprises a pedestrian route from St. Peter's Square to Castel Sant'Angelo in time for the Catholic Church's Jubilee year in 2025. This project is referred to as, quote, an embrace, end quote, between Italy and the Vatican by the city's mayor. The infrastructure improvements are being made to accommodate the expected 35 million pilgrims who will be visiting the Eternal City during the 12-month Jubilee of Hope. The project will include the redevelopment and pedestrianization of the piazza, costing approximately 70 million euros, according to a press release from the Vatican's Jubilee webpage. Italy's Undersecretary to the Presidency of the Council of Ministers, Alfredo Montavano, said in the press release that the city plans to complete the infrastructure improvements by Christmas Eve of 2024. The Holy Father will visit the French port of the city of Marseille in September to take part in the closing session of the Mediterranean meeting of the Catholic bishops and the young people from nations bordering the Mediterranean Sea. He will be the first pontiff to travel to the city in the south of France after Pope Clement VII's visit in 1533. As part of his 44th international apostolic visit, the Holy Father will arrive at Marseille International Airport on September 22 at 4:15 p.m. local time. He will be given a state welcome by French President Emmanuel Macron. The pontiff will then preside over a Marian prayer with priests at the Basilica of Notre Dame de la Garde at 5:15 p.m. This will be followed by a meeting with religious leaders near the memorial of sailors and migrants who drowned at sea. The following day, Pope Francis will address the final session of the meeting and will be the main celebrant of the Holy Mass in the afternoon before departing for Rome. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us tomorrow. In the meantime, you can visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.